Hello again, World History 2 students. Mr. Deegan here with another edition of VidNotes videos. Today we're going to tackle Lesson 4, Eastern Civilizations Part 1. Please get out your VidNotes packet, the Unit 3 edition. And when we talk about Eastern civilizations, we need to understand why we call them East. Well, Eastern civilizations refers to those civilizations in the Eastern Hemisphere that we might not talk about as much. We're going to be talking about the Ottoman Empire and the Mughal Empire today. And in our second part, we'll talk about China, Japan, and an empire in Africa that gained strength. The big question we'll deal with today: how did Eastern civilizations respond to European trade? And as you see, the Ottoman Empire of the Middle East and the Mughal Empire of India are the two empires we will be talking about. Before we talk about the East, it's important to point out how the East and West connected with each other. It wasn't Columbus that started the trade routes in 1492. There were trade routes in place that linked Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Europe for centuries. So it's 1500. We're now going to show you the different routes in place. And the most important of those routes was the Silk Road trade route. Where was the Silk Road trade route? Well, it started in eastern China, and the red line is the route, and it winds its way in Central Asia all the way to the Middle East. You see Baghdad, a city in Iraq, and it eventually hits the Mediterranean Sea. And the Mediterranean Sea connects merchants to Africa. You see the Egyptian city of Alexandria, and to southern European cities, including that major city, Rome in Italy. What's the significance of the Silk Road trade route? Well, since 100 BC, before the birth of Christ, this route connected many civilizations' economies along its path. Another trade route was the maritime or sea trade routes across the Indian Ocean. Here's India, here's the vast ocean that surrounds it, and this route also connected the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. What's the significance? Well, India, Africa, China, and also Greece. The Greek civilization traded goods and ideas. Another important trade route was the trans-Saharan trade routes. Trans meaning across. Where was this route? Across North Africa. You see it in tan here. When was this trade route widely used? From 700 to 1500. And what was the significance of the trans-Saharan route? Well, it linked Africa to Europe in the north and to India in the east. This trade route also introduced the religion of Islam to non-Muslim societies in Africa. And what were the important trade elements? Gold, salt, and slaves were all traded along this route. And you see how it's an important connector from North Africa to the west and the Atlantic trade, and the east and the Indian Ocean trade. Another trade route was the Northern European trade routes using the Black Sea. Here's the Black Sea, one of the biggest bodies of water in Europe, and you see how it links the Middle East and Eastern Europe to Northern Europe and Western Europe. And here is one of the routes you might take to get to Northern Europe from the Black Sea. Western Europe also had a sea and river route. Many routes, I might add, because there were so many rivers that linked west to the east. And here is Western Europe in green, countries that make it up. And let's look at some important rivers. The Seine, which runs through Paris, France. The Danube River, which runs through much of Central and Eastern Europe and actually empties into the Black Sea. So all of these rivers were important to connect the civilizations of the West and the East. The South China Sea trade routes. Where is it? Well, it's in Southeast Asia. And this map shows you some countries in Southeast Asia. The Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, also called Burma, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei. And the South China Sea trade routes links all of these different Asian societies. China is to the north here. And it also linked these Asian societies to India. As you see, the Indian Ocean is in the left-hand corner. Okay, why were these trade routes so important? Well, scientific ideas and new technology were exchanged among the different cultures along these trade routes. And the East provided the West with all of these new ideas. We should give the East more credit because Europe borrowed a lot of things from Eastern civilizations. Let's look at some of those things. China gave the West paper, the compass, silk, and you see a beautiful white silk dress and the worms from which silk comes, silkworms. China also gave the West porcelain. India and the Middle East gave the West textiles and a numeral system. We can say also that all Eastern cultures gave the West ideas about medicine, astronomy, and math. The first numeral systems were not invented by Europe or Western cultures, but rather by Eastern cultures. You see the Arabic Indic number system. And with all of this said, we might ask ourselves, what area of the world is more civilized? Is it the West? And we would often say yes. Or is it the East, who might be the underdog in this question? But based on all of this information, the East contributes a lot. Now it's time to look at some of the specific empires who made an impact. And the first empire is the Ottoman Empire. When did it have its power? From 1299 to 1923. And the first leader of the Ottoman Empire is Osman I. The Ottoman Empire is actually named for Osman. And who lived in the Ottoman Empire? Ottoman Turks, who practiced the religion of Islam, making them Muslims. The original location of the Ottoman Empire was in a small territory known as Asia Minor, shown right here in present-day Turkey. However, at its height, the Ottoman Empire expanded to include Southwest Asia, North Africa, Southeast Europe, and the Balkan Peninsula. And this map is going to show you how much the Ottoman Empire grows from 1300 to 1920. It starts in Asia Minor, but expands to include 3 different continents. And after World War I, it becomes the Republic of Turkey. It changes its name. And there it stands, the Republic of Turkey as it is today. What are some of the major accomplishments of the Ottoman Empire? Well, the first major accomplishment was to conquer a city. After a 53-day battle in 1453, the Ottomans conquered Constantinople, the capital city of the Roman Empire at the time. And once they took it over, they renamed it Istanbul. Now, Sultan Mehmet II is pictured here on this white horse. He was the leader that helped conquer Constantinople. And it was not an easy city to conquer because it was surrounded on three sides by water and on one side by heavily fortified fences and walls. So the Ottomans used their superior cannon technology to blast through the walls. This is a 23-foot cannon that the Ottomans and Mehmet II used to conquer Constantinople. How did leaders keep such a large empire united for so long, for more than 600 years? You see how vast it is on this map. Well, the short answer is leaders used the Islamic religion to unite and to keep united, and they also used tolerance of other religions. Of course, other religions would creep into the empire, but they did not have a zero tolerance policy. In fact, they were very tolerant of those other religions. This is the flag of the Republic of Turkey, and on it is the logo for the religion of Islam, the crescent moon and star. And that shows you how important Islam was to the Ottoman Empire. How did the Ottoman Empire interact with Europeans? Well, the Ottoman Empire traded often with other societies, especially Europe and its merchants. And the two key exports for the Ottoman Empire were coffee and ceramics. Moving on to another empire further east, we have the Mughal Empire. Its founder was Babur, you see here. When did the Mughal Empire exist? From 1526 until 1857. Where? In northern India. Who lived there? Descendants of Central Asia who practiced the religion of Islam, therefore they're Muslims. Let's look at this map in the lower left here that talks about the growth of the Mughal Empire. It started in this region that is outlined in blue, a very small area of northwestern India and in present-day Pakistan, and it grew slowly but largely into a force. Different leaders of the Mughal Empire expanded its territory. What were the major accomplishments of the Mughal Empire? Well, first, the Mughal Empire spread Islam into India. Today, Islam is the second most practiced religion in India. Another major accomplishment of the Mughal Empire is the Taj Mahal. You see it pictured here. It literally translates into the crown of palaces, and that it is. It's located in north central India, just south of India's capital city, New Delhi. What's the story behind the Taj Mahal? Well, in 1632, the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan ordered it built to honor his third wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who died while giving birth to their 14th child. Did the Mughal Empire trade with Europe? The answer is yes. The Mughal Empire traded often with Europe and other parts of Asia. There were three key exports that the Mughal Empire sent out: silk, spices, and gems. Portugal, England, the Netherlands were all three European powers that established coastal ports in India. And I highlighted England because England takes a special interest in India. In fact, England borrows many ideas from the Indian textile industry. You see a textile worker in India here. In fact, England businessmen go to India and set up a business called the British East India Company. And the British East India Company is so successful that many British folks come and settle in India and make India its colony. We're rounding that corner and almost done with lesson 4 of unit 3. First, please pause and answer those summary questions. Until that lesson, This is Mr. Deegan, signing off.